Hello and welcome to Talmud Vibes, where we try to talk about Judaism, Torah, and Talmud in a more casual approach, yet maintaining the ultimate respect for Israel's most precious tradition. My name is Yair Alon, and I am a rabbi living in Brazil. I usually say that the Bible is the most quoted book, yet the least read. Why do I say such things? Let me give you an example. Do you happen to know that there are two stories of the creation of the world in the Torah? Yes, and they are not far apart one from the other. Actually, they are just one next to the other. There is one story in Genesis 1 and another story with quite a lot of differences in Genesis 2. And many people are shocked when I'll tell them such things. Well, according to academic criticism of the biblical text, these are different accounts of the creation of the world written during the Second Temple period and reflecting different theologies or understandings of God and religion. The second account, the Genesis chapter 2, according to academics, is the oldest of these two stories. One of its most distinguishing features is that in it, God creates man, but then God realizes that there is something which is not quite right, and God realizes that man feels alone, and this is not very good. So God decides to make a companion for him. Well, this means that in this version of the story, God's creation is not perfect from the beginning. Not completely happy with this worldview, other Jewish sages kind of tried to correct this account and created a better or improved story of creation, in which everything is shown as created as perfect right from the beginning. And we have a proof for that in the fact that in this story, which is Genesis 1, we see God stating every time that all that he has created is good. In this story, of course, man and woman are created together right from the beginning. Well, what matters to us here is that this difference between these two stories of creation, and especially the relationship between man and woman, made room for sages to hypothesize that actually Adam had two different partners attributed to him. First, there was Lilith, then Hava, Eve. It is important to note that there isn't any reference to Lilith in the Tanakh. You can flip it around as much as you want, and you won't find it there. I'm sorry. What I'm telling you comes from what is known as oral Torah, Torah Shebel Peh, meaning a tradition based on rabbinical teachings when discussing the text of the Torah, but it's not exactly written in the Torah itself. Well, to be fair, there is one mention to the word Lilith in Isaiah 34:14, but most translators or commentators will tell you that this has nothing to do with our Lilith here, but that the term refers to some kind of night bird, probably an owl. Okay, so coming back to our oral tradition, what do the sages tell us about Lilith? According to a book called Alphabet of Ben Sirah, Adam and Lilith were created as described in the verse 27 of Genesis, meaning together, one glued to the other. Since they were both created at the same time and from the same material, Lilith did not accept to be submissive to Adam during sexual intercourse. After all, they were equal in every matter. Then they have a discussion, they argue, and Lilith flees. Adam complains to God, who sends angels to convince Lilith to return to Adam. She doesn't accept to their request, and eventually two things end up happening. Adam gets a new companion, Eve, as described in Genesis chapter 2, and Lilith ends up marrying someone else. She becomes Samael's wife, the angel of death, according to the Zohar. And from that moment on, Lilith will be known as the most prominent of the four queens of demons, the other three being Naamah, Eshet, and Agrat bat Mahlat. So, in Jewish folklore, Lilith becomes the most powerful queen of darkness, and in early medieval times, she is already seen as a very important entity in Jewish demonology, at least in two different ways. Firstly, some would believe she would come at night to steal or kill babies, especially male ones, as if to avenge what has happened to her. Because of that, it was very common for Jews to create magical amulets, chameot, with holy names to protect their babies. Usually, the names in the amulets were that of the three angels that, as we mentioned, were sent to try and convince Lilith to come back to Adam, Sanoi, Sansanoi, and Samnaglaloth. This is also the reason why a lot of customs and practice started to spread involving babies and their protections from Lilith. For example, it was believed that it was not good mazal, a good sign or good luck, to cut one's baby's hair before 5 years old. By keeping one's boy's hair long, Lilith would be deceived and think the baby is a girl, and thus would not steal the child. Another practice, specifically among Ashkenazic Jews, was to tap into the child's nose if they happened to see their kid answering or smiling to something parents cannot see. Well, the second way that Lilith was seen in demonology was as a creature interested in seizing wasted semen, what is called zera levatala in Hebrew. This semen can be taken by Lilith when a man masturbates and ejaculates, for example, or when he has nocturnal emissions. Some texts, like Shabbat 151b, actually says that Lilith herself entices and seduces men during their sleep, causing them to have wet dreams so that she can take their seed. But why would she do that? Well, there are mainly two reasons for that. First is a very practical one, in order to procreate from human species, again, as some kind of revenge, and then she could have a peculiar kind of progeny, that of demonic creatures, mixed with men. But then, why doesn't she do that with her husband, Samael? Well, this comes to the second reason. Talmud commentaries say that her husband has been castrated by God. In case you wonder, one of Lilith's most famous sons is called Ormuzd, according to Bava Batra 73b. So I hope you liked all that information about Lilith. Please don't forget to share your feedback about our videos. What parts of it are you enjoying? What maybe am I doing wrong and I could improve? Which topics would you like to see next in our series of videos? Join us next week when we will be discussing the Golem, a man-made being that can be animated with the power of the Hebrew alphabet. This is it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Talmud Vibes. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and all the best.